Okay, we are live everywhere.
Perfect. I will share that with our team and let some people join us. Oops. Mute myself.
So bear with us, anyone tuning in. We'll just warm up for like a minute or two and we'll get our episode cooking.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Travis on TikTok. Oh, there we go. Sorry. I was showing the OBS for a second, but we're good now.
I forgot one more button.
That's okay. I'm sure it's like a NASA control room for you.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
But yeah, good catch. It's always good to double check. Okay.
Every now and again, Travis, we don't, for those of you who might notice what I'm noticing, that Travis and I seem to match colors some days. We don't coordinate. It's just same brain wave, I think. Okie dokie. Yeah, we'll just give people a minute or two to pop on in. Got a cool episode to talk about today, and hope everyone voted today. I was talking to my father-in-law, and he's like, "Yeah, no one exciting on the ballot. There's nothing I care about, for measures." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we're talking about. The apathy of voting when no one exciting is on the ballot." Hi, DeGrump. Welcome to our TikTok. We're giving people a couple minute or two to jump on in, but glad to have you here. Welcome, Carrie.
Oh yeah, we shared that.
Welcome, Betty. Thank you for the like, Carrie. It's always appreciated. Bernadette, welcome. We'll get started at the 08 marker. Yeah, just let people trickle in.
Yeah, with the election, I mean, to be fair, this is a super off year election, but still, yeah, most people are not excited about it and excited about their choices. Not there's not a lot of choices to have at the off year, but still, it should be better than it is these days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can get started. Okie dokie. Well, welcome, everyone. We are live right now on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. So welcome from whatever platform you're joining us from. We are Think Future is Now Coalition. And if this is your first time joining in, you can think of Think as your civic utility company. And just like any other utility company, we are connecting people with standards and resources that are shared, fair, and equal. So that's exactly what we're doing for democracy. We plug everyone right into a fair, citizen-led democracy that is a system of representation and making participation simpler. And how are we doing that exactly? We are putting every candidate on equal footing. We are lowering the barriers for grassroots voices, and we are streamlining the democratic process. So all of that leads to a system that has less waste, more representation, and gosh, just a better system overall for all of us. So this system that we are building has built-in accountability that with these shared standards help keep leaders answerable to us, the people, while also reducing the egregious sway of money in politics. So with all of that, we invite you guys to plug in, be heard, and get results. So before we dive in to the meat and potatoes of today's episode, I want to welcome all of you, if you're tuning in from Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok, to feel free to jump in the chat. We love talking with you guys. We love answering the questions that you guys bring to us. So jump in the chat, hit that heart, hit that thumbs up button. But perhaps most importantly, with such a public and citizen facing and citizen focused mission like ours, hitting that follow or subscribe button is really powerful to a growing organization like Think. So we are just 10 people away, actually, from the 600 marker on TikTok. So that would be great to accomplish. But overall, we're really on the road to 1,000. So every follower on TikTok, YouTube, or Facebook really helps our mission spread and reach more people. So what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to be diving into the inefficiency that the DNC and RNC provide to the people when it comes to representation and honoring the will of the people. And so the format for today is going to be, I have some questions that I'm going to ask Travis to bring us a Think perspective on for politics. But I strongly recommend and strongly encourage people, if you have questions about democracy, what Think is about, or what we're talking about today, jump in the chat. We would love to talk with you guys. So feel free to, have follow-up questions or clarity questions. Awesome. So with that, I'm going to start us off simple, Travis. So my first question is, why do you think so many voters feel unheard by both major parties right now?
Yeah, that pretty much just boils down to the lack of representation right now. All the stats, no matter how you're looking at it, there's a huge gap between public opinion and government action. And even when you narrow it down, there's a huge gap between the voters of the voters in general, even the voters within each party. There's a huge gap between the voter of the party and then the leadership in the party. Ultimately neither side is truly representing what their voters want, and so that is just causing a lack of excitement, and just people don't feel represented, really more than ever in modern history right now, that people are unhappy with both parties and feeling lack of representation. Even if the policies that each side is supposed to support is generally favored with public opinion, but the leadership in these parties are not actually getting those policies in office the way that they're supposed to be. And they'll make it seem like they're passing something, but then it's either watered down or it's not gonna be exactly the way that it would benefit most people. It just kind of benefits the concentration of power. So that's so it's really just that lack of representation is dulling the excitement and all that.
And a follow-up to that is, well, gosh, if I'm a good citizen and I, like today, go out to vote and do my due diligence, what else can I do? Like, what is stopping my votes from equaling representation? What is the dam in that river?
Yeah, so really that the dam boils down to money in politics and the influence of special interests and those with the most power. So pretty much those at the top, those with the most money and influence, are shaping politics in favor of themselves. For example, if I own a private health insurance industry, or if I'm part of the health insurance industry, I'm going to want to put some of my money, I'm going to invest it in politics. I'm going to, pay for lobbyists to basically push my agenda. And what do I want? I don't want regulations I want to charge whatever I want on the prescriptions. Well, I guess that's pharma. Private insurance, they want to be able to deny healthcare to people. They want to, whatever, anything and everything that gets me higher profits as a private health insurance is what I want to do. And the main thing, again, that can stop me from pure profits is regulations and, following certain rules and standards. It's actually a fact that, they like, I saw the statistic saying, like, for every dollar a corporation spends on lobbying, the return on investment is like $760 back for every dollar spent. So even if I spend, big private insurance and I give like $1 million a year to sprinkled to both parties and certain politicians, I know I'm going to get a bigger return based on the legislation that works in my favor. So that's what it boils down to is, though, we're in a system where candidates like they have to raise millions of dollars just to have any chance of winning their election. And then so they're forced to give all their attention to whoever's going to give them the most money. They're not going to dial for your $5 and the other person's $20. They're going to dial for somebody's $10,000. They're not going to, so that's the biggest hurdle right now is just special interests and those that have the ability to influence their politicians. We're all human. All of us would want to influence the politicians to the best of our own ability. It just happens that it's just a concentration of people that have just such a louder voice than the rest of us.
Okay, so my understanding then, so it's not, politics is kind of inadequately just split up between its left voters and right voters. But what you're talking about is money, influence, power versus the voters, right? So you want to talk a little bit about that dynamic change?
Yes. And real quick, I just want to acknowledge, so what Carrie's saying in the chat in TikTok is that, like, Elon Musk, I haven't seen the exact numbers, but I could guarantee there's examples where he's invested his money and he gets a big return on profits from that investment. It's a lot. There's this whole game of following the money in politics and seeing where an industry put their money and where they got their return on investment. Tons of data that show that, because ironically, it's actually public information. You can find this information out. You just have to know what you're looking for, and mostly it's with opensecrets.org has a lot of this info. But anyway, so back to your question. So what we're really showing on, like, most people in this country just see politics as left versus right. But there's really a bigger battle that's kind of underlying in all of it. And, some people can see it more and more. It's becoming better known these days. But that's like one of our key missions is to really mainstream this concept of what we call up-down politics. It's part of our overall reframing of called digital politics. And so, the idea of up-down politics is that it's not necessarily like, yes, there's definitely a difference between left versus right, but up versus down is this other layer that really needs to have more people need to start understanding how to assess a candidate based on up versus down. And so what that means is, like, so up-serving candidates are those that serve their special interests, serve big donors, serve the party leaders. Basically, they look at those above them in power, above them in money, and want to serve those people and appease them. Because, if I serve those with the most money, they're going to give me chunks of that money towards my campaign and whatnot. And, I benefit personally by benefiting those that are in power because they can just lift me up. But then down-serving candidates are really the grassroots candidates, and that's what they're supposed to be. Down-serving candidate is somebody that actually represents the voter. They want to know what they look at their district. What does my district want? What are the pain points of my district? And they actually want to represent you while in office. Like, that is what all candidates are supposed to be, but unfortunately most are not like that. I don't have the exact percentage, but I would say like 5 to 10% of candidates are down serving. It's not always black and white. There's a more of a gradient between them, but definitely most are up serving. Because again, they just take so much money that like it can't not be a conflict of interest. If you're taking money from the industry that you're meant to reform, there's you can't reform an organization that's giving you millions of dollars. They're purposely giving you that money to not reform them, basically. And like, so it also doesn't, it's not necessarily about left versus right of like, oh, more tax on them, less tax, more regulation. It's really just when you're writing these complex bills, like every decision you're making, are you doing it thinking, oh, what could we do that gets the most Americans the happiest and the healthiest at the most efficient way possible? That's down serving. Up serving is, oh, well, I got this money, I have to appeal to my big pharma industry, I have to appeal to the big oil industry, I have to appeal to blah blah blah. Like, and literally this happens where they'll like look at their biggest donors, and like when they're endorsing or rejecting policies, they look at their biggest donors and like, who's going to get mad at me, who's going to stop funding me, who's going to fund my opponent if they get mad enough because I'm not serving them directly. So their decision making is based on their biggest donors and who's giving them the biggest checks and who's going to stop giving them their biggest checks. Where it really should be like, oh, I'm going to lose votes, because votes are what would be the representation. You should, if you genuinely earn the votes of the people, then you're genuinely representing the majority. But the system's all sorts of backwards. So anyway, in a nutshell, adding this layer of up versus down politics is a humongous, like just by implementing that, and Americans considering up and down in addition to left and right. We're not even saying to like stop looking left and right, just also add this other layer. Same thing for media too. There's independent media that's down serving, and then there's up serving media. And it's pretty much like who are they, what is their genuine intention? Is their intention to give you honest truths, or like, this is the media giving you honest truth, or are they selling a narrative from from those that are giving them the money? So a lot of different things can be framed in up versus down, and so that would be a huge change by people adding that to their voting decision making process.
Cool. And that kind of ties into my next question of, and if you guys have been a part of other lives or different videos, you know that it's not, Think isn't talking about, swaying your ideology, but we're talking about how candidates are chosen to represent you. So Travis, you can go into the difference between ideology and candidate access, I guess, to represent people, and maybe what how Think talks about those differences.
Sure. So, so we're trying to show the idea that there's difference between like each candidate's ideology, the specific policies they're pushing, versus like democracy infrastructure itself. Like us as Fink, we're not here to tell you, like Liz just said, we're not here to tell you like where you should stand on healthcare and where you should stand on immigration, where you should stand on social issues. That's for you to decide for yourself. We're not here to change anyone's minds in that sense. But what we want is really like, regardless of where you stand, we just want you to actually have a candidate that's actually going to fight for what you believe and not just give you lip service. But then when they're in office, they're really gonna just appeal to 1%, the those at the top. So we're big on like, so again, up versus down is not somebody can be right leaning but up, or left leaning and down, or vice versa. Like, there's no correlation between left versus right and up versus down. They're two separate ways of doing things. Left versus right's more of like stronger government versus less government, bigger tax, less tax, regulations. But like, there's good and bad ways to do all of it. But so up versus down is really like who are you trying to benefit? Are you trying to benefit the 1% that gives you the money? Or are you trying to benefit the voters and the people that you were hired to represent? And then and so you're gonna say something. I almost forgot the kind of the question. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to say, how do we link that narrative into the, I guess, physical structures of the DNC and RNC? How do we talk about this broader sense of representation when we have the DNC and RNC that kind of are the puppet masters of who we're allowed to vote for? If you could kind of tie that into an answer.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That was good. Yeah, so like right now, so what the DNC and RNC are really supposed to do is like, the DNC is supposed to go, hey, Democrat voters, yes, only the Democrats, but like, hey, Democrat voters, like we're gonna help facilitate deciding who you want to win, who you want to run as the Democrat representative in this country. So they're supposed to have a primary and like, hey, these are the people running. Voters, which one do you want to win for the general election? And then voters are supposed to be able to decide, and then whoever wins, they put all their backing on that person to win against the Republican. And the same on the flip side is what it's supposed to be and was kind of originally intended. But unfortunately, it's not at all that anymore. It's basically the DNC and RNC basically kind of the decision went from bottom up to top down, and it's basically they pretty much usually know who they want to win a primary before the primary even begins. They at worst they might have a second or maybe a third backup candidate, but they know who they want to win before voters even know who's running. And the huge problem with that is it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when the media first catches wind of this, they're going to already push, oh, this is the person, they're going to do so great, we anticipate that they're going to win, we predict they're going to win. It's like, well, you predict, you're also shoving it in our face that they're going to win. So it's again kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're going to push the candidate that they want to win. They're going to basically have a rigged game. Yes, we can vote for whoever we decide, but they're going to manipulate it. They're going to make it feel like if there's a candidate they don't want you to win, they're going to use fear-based tactics. Oh, if you vote for that person, it's just going to help the other party in the long run. I know they seem like really great and they actually represent you, but no one else wants them, even though the polls don't say that. The polls say that this person's super popular, but we don't like them. So we're going to tell you that this is a threat and that voting for this person is actually going to hurt your party. And so they do that. They do these fear tactics. They do manipulation with the media. They do financial backing to their ideal candidate. So they basically anoint someone, push them through the primary, make you feel like you participated, even though you didn't, and like even only like 10% of a party even votes in the primary, which, some of it's on us as citizens, some of it's just by design, they don't want us to participate. But so long story short is that we've gone to a place where like they kind of force their choice down our throats, and then like I don't know the exact percentage, but like I'd say like 9 times out of 10 they get what they want. Yes, sometimes they don't get what they want, but that it's a rare circumstance. And then and so it's not, it's just super weakening of democracy. And we have to go back to the roots of like, well, that's how the system was supposed to be, and it's not anymore. And so a lot of our solutions, which I guess I don't know if I should get into yet, but our solutions is basically, now that we can't rely on the DNC and RNC to select our choices, what could we do instead? And the good news is there's a lot of organizations that are starting to have newer ways to do that. Everything from utilizing like new technologies to just using the party structure differently. And really our goal is to make these groups be known, understand that there's multiple efforts happening, and that maybe not just one answer is going to win the whole country. Maybe certain parts change things. So for example, there's America's Main Street Party who's doing an app around this to run certain candidates that America chooses on their app. Maybe that works in certain, like right now they're going to tackle the House of Representatives. Maybe they start gaining some traction there. But then separately, maybe the Forward Party starts winning certain state elections, and then maybe someone else is winning something. So the idea is that like the future might be have more choices, but we also want to build infrastructure that simplifies these choices so you know what your choices are. Because that's one of the issues with democracies. It gets too confusing. So we want to be like, hey, these are the choices. These are the new efforts that are coming out. Here's the viability of these efforts. Like this one, oh, no one's giving any much support yet. So, maybe they're not going to stand too much of a chance, where another organization or party or politician is gaining traction. So we want to build alternative infrastructure that really bottom line is helps citizens choose the right candidates that represent them. And again, it could be left or right. We're going to add that lens of up versus down, but you decide left versus right. You choose if they have more of like a third party ideology or independent. We just want to give Americans more choices and not allow it to be up to the DNC and RNC to really force us into basically a two choice decision. We should have more than two choices for these different things.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad you touched on that. So we're going to do a quick reset. We see some people joining us, and we just want to reintroduce ourselves before we keep on asking Travis questions. So for those of us who are newer to the room, welcome. We're Think, Future is Now Coalition. You could follow us on social media at futureis.org, and then go to our website at futureis.org. But at think of us as your civic utility company. And like Travis has been saying, we want to streamline, simplify, bake into the democracy that we all deserve, fairness and accountability, and make that all one coherent system. And what Think is all about is making sure that every candidate is seen, every citizen is heard, and every journalist is free to speak. And what we're really building is this one system that, lessens the waste that we see today, has representation that actually counts for what we believe in, and makes our leaders answerable, accountable to us, the people. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Feel free to drop a question, a comment. Let us know if you voted today. But if you're seeing us on TikTok, you'll see the little meter above. We're only 10 follows away from 600, and every follow really counts to the people forward, people focused mission like ours, and to help spread that message. So if you like what you're hearing, we'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. But going back to some questions, and we talked a little bit about the money part of it. But Travis, my next question is, how do party leaders, say the RNC and DNC, and donors actually decide who voters get to see? And I'd like for you to flesh that out a little more. And then what does the gatekeeping look like in those manners? So we can just say, oh, we didn't get to choose because someone else chose for us. But what are the actual mechanisms behind the scenes where our choice is kind of taken out of our hands before we get to the ballot box?
Sure. So first, the kind of like I was saying earlier, the DNC and RNC, like everyone that's running in the primary, the DNC and RNC are supposed to like really showcase these candidates for you. Like, hey, these are your choices. Yes, they have individual campaigns, and in a lot of ways are kind of left to their own devices. But to some extent, they should be like a whole stage. Like it's almost like you'd go to like the building of the RNC, and they should all be like standing right there. Like these are all your choices for this district. So I mean, to be fair, it's never been that way, but it's kind of what it is. Well, kind of like it always kind of should have been that way. Maybe it couldn't have been before the digital age. But so so for one, people are not even clear who's even running in a race. The only way now I know is that luckily in New Jersey we have one of the better voting laws and regulations. So I get a sample ballot like a month or two early. So I get to see all the candidates. From what I understand, most states don't get any kind of an alert. You have to do your own research, which I'm sure going on your state website's gonna tell you, line it up there. Yes, different states vary. Some states give no information. Some states give more information than what I get in New Jersey. But generally it's very minimal, state countrywide. So anyway, so the DNC RNC. So first of all, you're not even really sure about the candidates, but you are sure about the one candidate that they like. You're going to hear about that any chance they get. So again, they're going to push their candidate. So like there might be 5-10 choices, and you are only hearing about one, maybe three, but you're definitely not hearing all of them. And I understand, to be fair, like if there's some like random person that like put their name on the ballot and like has absolutely no growth, I understand, but like it's also chicken or the egg. Like even though somebody's a new candidate doesn't mean they might not end up being extremely popular if people actually heard what they have to say. So again, it's that chicken or the egg. They make sure that these people never even have a chance to shine. So there's that piece. Then you go to the donors. The DNC, RNC, and just Democrats and Republicans in general have these donor networks. And so if you're the establishment pick, they're gonna feed you all their typical donors, and like and it's not like a exact 1-to-1 ratio, but like if you're a candidate and you're very close with another establishment candidate, the big donors from one is gonna talk to you, and you're gonna be part of that same donor network, and that really boils down to it's a concentrated influence on you. The money is influencing a politician to vote a certain way, not because America wants it, but because they're getting money. So you have the donor networks, and then even that, like when the candidates, when like the DNC and RNC assess a candidate, they don't go based on popularity, that they could fill a field, and when they talk everyone is quiet and listens. No, they say, this guy is able to raise money, this guy can get big donors, this guy can dial for dollars like no other. And so that's another thing that's kind of reinforces this trap, that you're basically praised for being able to sell your soul to the highest bidder. So that happens. Then you have the mainstream media is also part of this as well. It's not this one giant conspiracy where there's like 1 or 5 people controlling everyone, but it is like, it's greed, and it's selfish, and like the 1% kind of have similar interests as one another. So like they don't all like fall in line, but they all generally have similar motives, and so it's easier for them to come together. Whereas like the 95% of us, 99% of the country have a lot of different ideas, perspectives, needs, etc. So it's we're not all in one bucket the way greed can be. So the mainstream media is part of this pipeline too, and it's the same for them. If they find a candidate is too threatening to the status quo, they're gonna put you less on TV. And then if you are gonna be on TV, they're gonna do these, like there's a lot of nonverbal manipulative things that news anchors have learned to do. Like literally there's a lot of YouTubes on this, that like even if a candidate is like this most amazing person, there's certain ways that they hold their hands together, they'll do eye gestures. Like while they're watching the candidate, they do things that subconsciously make you not trust the candidate, make you feel like, oh, haha, they're like laughing the person off stage and like, oh, that's so ridiculous. Oh, that's so funny. You want people to actually, survive in the richest country in the history of the world? That's so ridiculous. So there's all these tactics to make anyone that genuinely represents the people sound like a nutcase, basically. So that's the media part of it. And then, the big donors, you have the corporations, those with the most money, they're going to want to not be regulated. They're going to want to they want to be able to do whatever they want. And, if they could give you money and you're going to make less regulations so I could dump my toxin in the river next door, I'd rather give you, I don't know, $50,000 to your campaign so I could dump my toxin there, because otherwise it's going to cost me $200,000 a year to recycle that toxin somewhere else. So of course I'm going to give you $50,000 rather than have to, clean it up myself. And there's a lot of layers to that, of a lot of examples of how that works. And it's not just one-sided, between left and right, but so bottom line is just like, all these different entities, these pieces of the establishment. Like our main categories that we talk about are, private corporations, those with the most money, the multi-billion-dollar corporations, not medium businesses, small businesses, just the guys at the top is one. Corporations, well, that was them. And then the second is the establishment media. Like there's 6 companies own 90% of TV media right now. They have a huge amount of influence. Usually a billionaire owns most of those media outlets. And then the third one is the party gatekeepers. And that's like the parties, like making sure that, the non-status quo candidates can't rise to the top. So those are like the 3 categories of the establishment, essentially, that are the part of this political machine. And again, it's not like this secret mass conspiracy. It's all this is legal now. Like, you could give endless money to there's certain regulations where how the money is spent and whatnot, but like essentially a corporation could give basically endless money to promote a certain candidate, in some form or the other. So in a nutshell, these are how, the concentration it's all about influence. Our vote counts. When you go to the voting poll and flip the switch, that counts. It's just that we're manipulated into certain false choices. So we choose basically what the establishment wants us to choose. So if there's a candidate that would be so amazing and most America would want them, but the establishment wouldn't, they're going to spend the whole year and a half before the election to make it sound like that person is crazy and would never get elected, and your worst nightmares come true if this person is voted in. And they and then by the time the polls go, and then like a lot of people say, oh, I really wanted them to win, but they just weren't viable. And like, but it's all manipulation. They spent millions of dollars and a year and a half, 2 years, just to make sure that when that day comes, that you thought that that person wasn't viable, and that you actually thought that you voted in your own best interest with, whoever you ended up with. So that's a lot of how this system is working right now.
Great. I see some new people coming in. So Travis, I'm going to reset the room, but I'd like our last segment. We talked a lot about, what the problem is and how democracy is rigged against true representation. I would like in this conversation to triangulate that, if I'm the voter and the system is so rigged, but you're Fink and what are you doing on the scene? If you could help triangulate, voter, problem, and Fink after I reset the room, I think that'd be a really cool conversation piece. So with that, I see some new folks coming into our TikTok, so welcome to our live. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok right now, so welcome from wherever you are coming in. We're Fink, Future is Now Coalition, and you can think of us as a civic utility company. So we are building one system that will make democracy fair, simple, and accountable. So all of that equating to every candidate is seen, every citizen is heard, and every journalist is free to speak, making a system that results in less waste, more representation, and actual accountability, right, to those we give power to. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Feel free to say hello to us in the chat, drop a question. But for such a people-focused, people-oriented organization like ourselves, hitting that subscribe, hitting that follow button means a lot to our growth and our ability to share our message. So we're only 10 away on TikTok from 600. So I really invite you guys, if you like what you're hearing, to hit that subscribe button. And with that, I will pass it back to Travis to talk about how Think fits into this broken system and what it means to, what our mission means and what aspect of hope and clarity Think is trying to bring to the conversation at large.
Right. So, as we've been talking about in this episode, we've explained how the DNC, RNC, they're basically anointing their candidates, pushing them through the funnels, and then ultimately these candidates are heavily, heavily on the side of only 1% and are not representing the voters. Basically, that's the bottom line of why everything's crumbling down, why the economy's been getting worse since 2008, why people don't feel represented, why, if you feel Trump is destroying everything, he was born out of all this that's going on. He's a symptom of a bigger problem, and this is that bigger problem. So anyway, what we're offering as a unique solution is that we're not counting on legislative change to change the game. Like our phrase is, we can't change the rules, but we can change the game. And rules meaning the laws. We can't change laws anytime soon, but we could change the game. And by that, we mean like how people choose their candidates. What it really boils down to, like, what is an election? What is campaigning? Everything boiled down is basically, it's choosing who you're going to vote for in an election. That is what all that is for. A campaign. Why is this guy selling his soul for millions of dollars? It's so he has money to advertise to voters, so voters vote for him. So this whole system, DNC, RNC, they're meant to show us who's running and help us narrow down who we want. And like we discussed earlier, that's been corrupted. So what Think wants to do is basically have it that citizens are in control of that process. And so ultimately the process is who is running, and then start building a consensus. Like, it's important to know who's viable, because it's understandable. You don't want to vote for somebody that only has a 5% chance to win, because you'd rather vote for somebody, you'd rather vote for somebody that has a chance to win, basically. So part of the infrastructure we're building is the process of, choosing who's running, what candidates are running, the basic information of these candidates, who's funding their campaigns, are there conflicts of interest in the money they're receiving, how consistent are they with their promises once they're elected, do they actually fulfill their promises, where do they stand, not just left versus right, but up versus down. And then after that is building a consensus around, like, whether, and there's going to be different ways of doing this, whether it's like a contest, like our one partner, America's Main Street Party, is going to literally run a contest. So basically they're going to go into a district and advertise this app that you could download. This app, you can, anyone that can get enough signatures can get on their ballot of this contest. Go through an election process, basically like a digital primary. They go through a multi-round contest to narrow down who does that district want out of all the choices. And then whoever wins that contest gets all the political funding they need to run in the general election after that. So we're basically amplifying and interconnecting these newer ways to run candidates and allow America to decide who's going to win an election. And so there's different tactics, because the idea is that there's different organizations that are doing this. We're not doing it directly. We want to interconnect these different options to make one large umbrella where there's like a one place where America could go to see, these different choices and, who's doing what, what kind of efforts are happening. And it's just to simplify this process as much as possible, streamline it as much as possible so that the average citizen, you don't get too overwhelmed. We want to like systematize all your choices of candidates, show the, again, the chances of these candidates being able to win, the different organizations that are doing these efforts, because the establishment is so huge. It's not just one company can just do this and just win the system. It's like, we want to interconnect, really build a grassroots ecosystem that can rival the establishment. So we're talking about independent media being there instead of establishment media, and underdog candidates being there instead of the establishment politicians that, sell their soul for money. And, instead of the DNC and RNC, we want to find grassroots organizations, grassroots movements, and have these groups working together, even if they're competing on some levels, that they're still going to be under this one umbrella just to simplify the process for the American people, one-stop shop, one shared stage, which is a process. First, it's kind of a multiple stage of like, different platforms on social media and different apps being used, but slowly bridging those different apps and starting to consolidate it under one roof. Not one roof of like one person like controlling it, but one location, but then different organizations are running these different efforts. So in a nutshell, it's basically there's these different organizations that are trying to give America better ways to select their candidates, and Fink wants to build an umbrella around these efforts, amplify them, show you that these exist, help them get the journalist support that they need, the voices that they need, and uplift these different efforts so that it could rival the establishment, actually start getting real representation in government.
Awesome. I think that was such a cool thing to end on, Travis. We're building a system that rivals the establishment, right? If you've tuned in for this episode or an episode before of our lives, we talk extensively about the evils and the how money has influenced and corrupted almost the whole entire process, right? Like Travis is saying, from media to the politicians to the gatekeepers, all of it is just corrupted against representation. And we're trying to interconnect people on the ground doing the good work, right? Good candidates, good organizations, good journalists, and provide that system of support to lift them up, to provide you guys the services that they do. So thank you guys for tuning in. My last couple of words are just, again, we're only 10 people away on TikTok from hitting our 600 follower mark. And if you've liked what you've heard today, a great way to support us right now is to hit that subscribe button, show us that love, and help us reach other people. You can follow us on most social media at futureis.org, and check out our website. It just got the homepage just got revamped. It's a great example and a great way to understand our mission. So give that a look, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be live tomorrow, same time. So that's going to be 2:00 Eastern and 11 Pacific. So we look forward to having you guys back tomorrow. Any final words, Travis, from you?
Nope. Yep. Just follow, share, check our website, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.